everything that you would want from a swim run race and pretty much nothing you can find in a triathlon. Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a swim run podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this episode is all about Ötillö Catalina.
Very good on the
Thank you.
pronunciation.
I've had a lot of practice this weekend.
We spent some time around a few Swedes.
Yes.
A few Swedes this
Yes.
weekend. But yes, we're back from Catalina. Literally, today is, we're only 2 days removed, so the soreness in the legs is still lingering, but we wanted to get our thoughts out on the Low Tide Boys race review or, race report, whatever.
Yeah, and we're going to do something special for this episode. We're actually going to split up the race report into two parts, Part A and Part B. Part A is going to be our sort of leg-by-leg breakdown of the course and our race.
Our
And
telling
then,
of the story.
yeah. And then for Part B, we're going to have the women's team that came in second place overall, Arc Souls, Helen, and Isabella, who we became friends with, and they crushed it, came in second. And, we'll get to hear what they thought of the race. They've raced World Championship. They came in third of the World Championship last year. So it'll be interesting to kind of get their take as a couple Swedes come into to America to race.
We came here, and we were excited to race, but we also knew we were going to be busy because we had at least 2 interviews scheduled and a lot of softer interviews scheduled because a lot of these people are traveling from out of state, and we wanted to make sure that we can make good use of our time there. And
we were busy. We were on.
we were very busy.
We were doing work. We were
hustling.
we're almost journalists.
We got a lot of great interviews on Catalina this weekend. We were hustling. We were grinding it out. Any available space that we had to record an interview, we tried to meet up with whoever would chat with us. And we had some really awesome ones, including Better Tethered Together, our now new besties from Colorado, the Arc Souls girls from Sweden, and Jonas Kolting, and the living legend Jonas Kolting, as well as
Mia and Fanny, who run an organization called Wild Women Swim Run. They're doing really great stuff. So we'll have those interviews coming out in the coming weeks, but we're really excited about the content that we got. And I must say, this being our first time kind of in the Ötillö sort of world,
universe, yeah,
in the wild, so to speak, the love that we got from everyone was overwhelming.
I mean, honestly, it started on the ferry over, and I mean, we were wearing our stuff and everything because we're trying to do some brand building ourselves, but on the ferry ride over, that whole situation that we met a couple people, and we have a place for shout outs here, so we'll give everybody
we'll definitely shout everyone out. But
there.
I think everything from getting on the ferry, and I agree, we were branded up. I say we were the only amateur team that had their own logo with matching beanies and hoodies and everything. So you could spot us, and I would say either people were ignoring us or they were, hey, Low Tide Boys. Even when we're getting off the ferry, there was a couple guys being like, oh, the famous Low Tide Boys. And we're like, okay, Dr. Evil. like why'd you say it like that?
I was honestly, Chris and I were both blown away, I guess, by the welcoming and the response and the amount of people that came up and said they loved the show or they loved a certain meme or something. I mean, it was just wild to me.
Yeah, and even so we crashed. So the first night we got there, we crashed an Ötillö happy hour that they had. We didn't RSVP for. We just showed up. But we RSVP'd at the last minute and they said it were full, but we kind of snuck in there, and it helped that we walked in with the reigning female world champion and her friend.
Yeah, having just interviewed them
on the pier, which is kind of funny. And we're just chatting folks up, and this random guy comes up to us from Sweden who just says, hey, just want to let you know I love the show, love what you guys are doing. It's like breath of fresh air into the sport. And we're like, okay, he just goes away. And then someone who'd interviewed before, who we were chatting with, Christopher Sundberg from Arc Sports, he was like, oh yeah, that's he was world champ last year. And we're like, what? It's like, what?
Like, imagine being at a baseball game and a Hall of Famer comes up and goes, hey, I love your podcast, and then walks off. Like, that's the.
I mean, and of course,
insane.
And of course, the sport is super niche. These people can walk around without being accosted in the United States, probably most of Europe without being accosted. But, in their respective circles, however small they are, these guys are really competitive athletes and really great. And the fact that they, could even care to tell us how they felt about us, I thought that was really nice. And to be honest, I felt like it put a little bit of pressure.
We're going to crack.
I felt it's like almost too much pressure. Not just to compete. I mean, we're never in the running for any podium. We're like about 2 hours off the podium.
Well, there was this. I will say, I did feel, and we hit it off really well with the team Baywatch, Beacon Blake, as well as the Swimrun monks, Sean and Philip, and we got there, and as we were kind of getting closer, maybe it was just me, and I'm maybe overly paranoid, but I felt there was a little bit of like, that we kind of have this thing going on, and they maybe thought we were really downplaying when we were talking about our skill set, and there was a little competition kind of going on. But I think once they saw this, they were like, "Oh yeah, okay." These guys are.
No, I think there was definitely a little bit, just sort of like the humble thing is like, "Oh, you guys are gonna crush us." So it's like, no. Like actually,
no, we're really not.
When we tell you we're just average goes, like we actually mean it. That's not us just trying to like,
be super humble,
be super chill, and then show off. I mean, that would have been great, but that's just not the reality.
And I mean, it was great because we're messaging with people all day. And it's great to see some of these people in person, and super happy for everybody that had a great race, or if you had a tough day, I think you got sort of what you came for, which was a real challenge and an experience. But
and I would say, final impressions on the weekend. I mean, it's hard for me to walk right now, but I'm still on cloud 9, and I just loved every minute of it, even the minutes that were pretty painful out there. And it just cemented. I feel like we already kind of fell in love with the sport just from doing Casco Bay and doing the races that we've done, and to actually be on the Ötillö sort of like circuit and do a World Series race. To me, even though it was super hard, like I'm still hooked.
Yeah, I mean that's what we came for.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody kept inviting us to come over to Sweden and stuff. It's like, we're coming. Can you give us? Give us a minute?
Little bit. I gotta get my.
We got a couple 8-month-olds. But it was great, and we want to do just a quick shout out of all the people that we met, just to give them a little.
All the ones
love.
that we remember. That we remember to write down.
Just to give a little bit of love. So, do you want to start it off?
Okay. Sure thing. And this is in not necessarily chronological order, so if you met us early on Friday, maybe anyway. We have Janice, Helen, Isabella, Christopher, Libby, Colleen the chemist.
Yep.
Tori, Sam, Christy, Bridget, Kimmy, Fanny, Mia, Jonathan.
Yeah, then we have Rick, Dana, Sarah, Jonas, Lars, John, Charles, Brian, Bronwyn, Preston, Donnie.
And then Team Gin and Tonics.
Got to give them a shout out.
We got to give them a shout out. We had a couple other we met them, I'm sure, at one point, but we had a few funny team names that we really liked.
Right. So we thought we would do our top 3 team names and then some honorable mentions. And we thought of this because when we were interviewing Fanny Kuhn, female reigning world champion, just, and just a little factoid with their
NBD.
Yeah, no big deal. Exactly. When we were reviewing her with Mia regarding their organization, Wild Women Swim Run, which you'll hear about in a future podcast, she was saying how she loved that when she was looking at the start list that people had really funny names, because I guess in Europe...
Or the Americans have funny names.
The Americans had funny names because in Europe they're like more serious, or they'll just shout out the sponsor.
That would be their... Or Arc Swim Run or whatever their thing is.
Exactly. So we just pulled the list of the names we thought were the funniest. So
do we rank them, or we're just giving?
So I think we ranked them.
Okay.
So the number 1 name we thought was Beaver Freezer, which that was a women's team. Then we liked Like Fun Only Different, which was a mixed team. Chafing Our Dreams, which was a men's team.
Nice play on words there.
Yeah, and then a couple honorable mentions. We have Friends Without Benefits. That was a mixed team. Traveling Dingleberries. That was also a mixed team. And then finally, Brad Pat, which was a men's team where there's a Brad and a Pat in the team. So we thought that was pretty clever. And, of course, Gin and Tonic, also Very
Also
good team name.
Yes. So without further ado, here comes the Low Tide Boys leg by leg race report.
Boom. Okay, and we're back. So what we're going to try to do, without taking too much time, we just thought it'd be helpful for people that are thinking about doing this race next year or really want to get a breakdown, a sense of what the course was like. And I think overall, the course was super hard.
Yeah, we completed it in just over 7 hours, 7:01 or something like that.
We were about 2 hours off the podium.
Yeah, about 2.5 hours off the podium. Nicholas and Team Inval, who did it in 4:30, so we did 7 hours, which aligned with our expectations, and I believe everyone kind of came up to us, hey, how did the race go? How did you guys feel about it? Give your one sentence answer, Chris, on how you felt.
I was stoked. I thought that 6.5 hours would have been a good goal for us, and I feel like with the currents the way they were, the choppiness of the water, I think that's where we kind of lost time, but could we have swam faster and ran faster? Of course.
That's always the case.
I thought that Ötillö did a great job. The course which you'll hear about, had sort of a series of kind of loops that all sort of centered around the town of Two Harbors, and really easy to follow, hard to get lost. And for what it was, it was a super complicated and challenging course, technical in parts, steep descents.
It was
rough swims, everything.
Yeah, it was everything that you would want from a swim run race, and pretty much nothing you can find in a triathlon. There was one swim that we did that it would have been would have canceled the swim leg.
Canceled.
It would have been canceled.
The swim would have been canceled for
sure. And we're
sure.
walking up, and if you want to get a visual element to this, check out Marcus Benton's video that he posted on Facebook, and we'll link it in the show notes. But he brought his little GoPro out and kind of went along. But I don't want to get too off track.
Yeah, and just about that, if you watch that video at 1 minute and 10 seconds.
We're in there a couple times, yeah.
I'm getting my hair braided by Isabella, who did a great job getting my crazy ass hair out of my face.
Your crazy, curly.
That probably convinced that. Yeah, that probably helped our finishing time, I think. But yeah, let's go leg by leg.
This is the World Series distance.
This is the World Series distance. Yeah, so we're talking eight runs, 7 swims, basically 18 miles of running, and about 5.5 miles of swimming.
Ocean, water, swimming. And
30K of running, or 7,700 meters of swimming.
The ocean temps ranged, I would say, probably around 61, maybe 62. And it probably, on that last swim, once the tides came in and out, I think it probably got down into the high 50s.
Yeah.
Because that one was definitely a little bit chillier.
Yeah.
And the weather was... What would you say? Probably
mixed.
Yeah. It was probably in the low 60s, but it got windy once you kind of got up on the ridge, and I think that caught some people by surprise. And there was a fair amount of DNFs, and DNSs did not start or did not finish.
Yeah, there was 12 DNFs and about 19 DNSs. So,
Yeah. I think a lot of those, I would have to say, are probably hypothermic related. All the people that we saw, that was kind of what we had kind of
could be. And if you're keeping score, the Low Tide Boys came in 77th overall out of 119 teams. We were 2 hours and 23 minutes back from the podium. Okay, and we were 40th place for the men's, pretty much middle back kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, despite that, I think it was. If you want a challenging course, this is what it was. Yeah, and we had fun. And we didn't kill each other.
That's true. I thought, and one thing I will say, and we talked about this a little bit when we were running, that when we did Casco Bay, we were having a lot of fun in the beginning. Not that we're not having fun all the time, but we were a lot of bullshitting, a lot of chatting. This race was
there wasn't a lot of talk.
It was business from right away.
Yeah,
and I think it's just because how the course was. It didn't start easy, which leads us right into the first leg, a 2.3 mile or 3.7K hike.
Right.
Up right out of Two Harbors.
Yeah, so the race started at Two Harbors, and you basically did this loop on a pretty steep hill that was about 600 feet of climbing, I think, overall, that basically brought you back. You did this loop that brought you back to the same harbor where you started, where then you went to leg 2, which was basically a 1,500 meter or 1,600 yard swim that took you out of that beach into the cove that was to the south, which was called Big Fisherman Cove. And that swim wasn't super complicated. You just kind of go straight, bang a right, and get out. I don't think there was anything super novel about that, except that it was the first swim. So a bunch of people were sort of putting their wetsuits on the way. We had our wetsuits on from the start, and a lot of the faster teams were sort of what you call cab down. So they had their wetsuits kind of around their waist. And by the time I thought, well, maybe we should do what those guys are doing because they seem to know what they're doing, this freaking gunshot went off and
it spooked us.
Yeah, it was like, and everything was going like the ferry left right when it was supposed to leave. And I'm looking at my watch and I was like, oh, this race is going to start in like 10 seconds. Boom! And and we were off.
Just to go back to the run real quick, I'm seeing on Strava grades of 47%. I mean,
it's a knee scraper.
Yeah, it was a knee scraper. I mean, there's no grade that I see that's less than 18-15%.
Yeah,
it was same way on the way down. I mean, so very technical descents.
Yeah, and what we heard from a bunch of the Europeans teams is that they're not used to those sort of straight downs. Like the courses can be technical, but usually switchbacky, rooted and rocky, sort of the European style of mountain running. And this was just a little bit different, where you just go straight up and then straight down like a roller coaster.
And then you already mentioned going into the 1500.
Yeah, that swim, that seemed fine to me. It was just kind of basically getting your sea legs, for lack of a better word. The swim felt nice and refreshing after that run.
I was sweating, and I was immediately thinking, oh, what a as soon as I get out of the water, I'm taking these arm warmers off because I was cooking in my suit there.
Right. So after that swim, when you got out of Big Fisherman's Cove, you had your basically your second run leg that was just under 3 miles or 5K that took you to this beach called Ballast Point Beach, which is sort of on the other side of the island, which, again, that was pretty straightforward. I don't think too much to talk about there. And then a short swim for leg 4 that basically took you from Ballast Point Beach to Catalina Harbor boat ramp.
And that was the shortest swim of the day.
Yeah, 440 yards or 400. Then the big
so
run.
Yeah, you kind of cut this bay in half to get to the big 10K.
Yeah, so that was the big 10K swim, which was essentially from the boat ramp to Parsons Landing, which takes you up and over the island, north of two harbors, from essentially the west part of the island to the east part of the island. East part of the island to the west part of the island.
And that one, I have my Strava up again. So that 10K took us almost an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I was pretty tapped. I mean, that's 2,200 feet of elevation gain in 6 miles.
Right, and a lot of that elevation was in the first 2 miles. So it was pretty steep going up. And I think if I had one complaint, so you got out of the water, and again, it's all ocean swim, so the water's salty. You pretty much had to do that big climb to get to the aid station to get some water.
I would have liked the aid station right there.
Yeah, just nice. To fill up on water would have been good because, I mean, I was definitely feeling thirsty by the time we got to that aid station.
Yeah. I'm seeing grades of 30-40% on
yeah, it was a death march, and I know that some of the pro teams were sort of hike walking or speed hiking that.
Not the boys.
Not us. We were just kind of head down, one leg in front of the other. I mean, to our credit, it's not like we stopped and did anything. We just kind of kept trucking along.
We just kept going, and kind of the same thing when we run these big ultra marathons. It's like, hey, just keep moving forward, and that's progress.
Yeah, and what we heard from the Swimrun monks and from Team Baywatch was like, hey, you got to keep it in your pants. You're not gonna. You can't blow up, because if you blow up on that, and they both previewed the course multiple times, so we were like, yeah, let's just do what they say.
Let's just listen to what they say. And yeah, I had my hip was a little bit bugging me, and we kind of, when we got near the top, we were definitely starting to feel really dehydrated, which was poor management on our part. But we knew when we got to the top, we got to remedy this really quickly, because this has the potential to like pretty much wreck our entire race.
Yeah, so we drank a lot. We filled up our little flasks and then ran with those for the rest of the run, which once we sort of leveled off, you're running along this ridge, which was amazing.
Yeah. It did get a little windy and a little chilly up there, and I was starting to get cold, and was that when I bust my swim cap and I put it back on?
That was pretty smart on your part. Yeah, and then there was just a crazy downhill, which I think we passed like 10 to 12 teams on the downhill, and I just remember just yelling, like, coming in hot. And I think that's probably because of where we live and run. We're sort of used to these sort of screaming straight down routes, and a lot of teams were having problems with footing, and we're just kind of taking a chill, and we were just kind of destroying our quads.
We're paying for those decisions today. And they're walking around fine.
Definitely. But yeah, so that run ended, and then we get to Parsons Landing Bay, which it was
the funnest swim of the whole day.
It was a bitch of a swim. If you have children and you've watched Frozen 2 when Elsa is trying to go north,
into the unknown,
that was that swim. So there's some nutrition there. We go to run into the water, and Chipper's kind of going in this weird angle. He's just ready to go. And I grew up on waves like this in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So I kind of stopped him, and I was like, no, we actually need to line this up because we can't go at this at an angle. And there was this big rock that was sticking out that I don't think
I didn't
think you even saw it, which is kind of weird.
People mentioned the rock, and I'm like, oh,
so I kind of lined Chipper up, and I think that this is where, in hindsight, this is one of the great things about Swimrun and these courses, because we had to make some tactical decisions on the fly. We had to work as a team, and I think
we didn't have time to.
The speed that we did it, I was just really. I mean, we just made a decision. And, okay, this is the plan, and we're going to execute. And we just went, okay, go. And for this swim, you basically had to go through, the surf was 3 to 4 foot swells. You had to go out to, it was kind of like a triathlon swim. You go straight out.
Like a rectangle little.
To some buoys, bang a right, hit some another buoys, and come back into that beach. It's about 700 meters or, 765 yards, 800 yards, something like that.
And it was a tough swim. And there was big waves crashing, multiple people getting knocked over whilst trying to go into the water, or I got knocked over trying to get out.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with the safety precautions that Ötillö had taken.
Yeah, there had some boats out there.
Boats that were basically shadowing teams that would go, and they had their flags and everything up, like, hey, there's people in the water, and when someone would get to the buoy to turn in to go to shore, they would drive back and bring the next group. So. Yeah, I felt it was really well managed.
And that swim was definitely the most exposed swim that we had.
Well, they had prepped us about that in the thing, Mott's.
That's right. So our approach to it, again, because I grew up swimming in those waves, I was like, all right, Chipper, so we're going to do. When you're ready, I'm going to call it, and you just have to be ready to jump. And it was funny because I was like, you ready? And you were like, no. And then I got like blasted by a wave. I'm like, all right, man, you got to really let me know when you're ready, man. So I was like, well, let me just take us out and just stay on my feet. And I powered through that like I was just sprinting.
I was watching you, and from the back, you were like going up a wave, and I'm trying to go up the wave, and you're trying to go through it, and I'm like, we were getting. Yeah. It was literally like you were in a washing machine.
Yeah, no, and I knew that we just had to get past the break. And then I was pretty smoked once we got to that buoy. I'm not gonna lie. And then you kind of took over, and even the swim going parallel to the beach,
you couldn't even see.
That was pretty you were just being tossed around.
Yeah, and I got the feeling that it felt like you were swimming in quicksand, like you were taking strokes, and I'm like, I don't think we're going anywhere.
Yeah.
How long are we gonna be out here? And
again, I think tactically the way we played that was smart. It was like, all right, I'm gonna get us to the buoy, you get us across, and I'll bring us in. That way. Your swim leg was a little bit longer than the two of mine, I think, but I knew that
coming in... But the effort level was harder on yours. Yeah,
exactly. I knew coming in was going to be a pain in the ass, too, and to the point where I think I came in and you were almost like on my feet because you caught a wave or something and you kind of landed on me.
Yeah, and then you stood up to take off, and I stood up
and got
blasted.
You
were tethered, and then I got knocked over. I'm like, okay, I know what's coming next. Boom, big old wave on my head, and then I feel our tether just get like stretched to the max, and I'm like, Chris is either gonna get pulled back in here with me, and I think he like just unclipped it just in time, and it shot back towards me.
Yeah, because I looked back and I saw that that it was gonna take you. It was gonna take you a little, so I would just let it go, and I was just hoping it wasn't gonna hit you in the face or something. But I was like, I can't get pulled back in.
But there was, we talked to 3 or 4 different teams that either broke their goggles.
Yeah.
Some teams completely lost their goggles.
Yeah, the number 2 team, Isabella and Helen, they went head over heels when they were coming out of the water.
Ass over tea kettle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So after that, we kind of
we were like
the next run.
Yeah, we were like, well, that was the thing. So from Parsons Landing, it was a short run to the next bay, which was called Emerald Bay. It's about 1.1 miles, and we were just kind of like, all right, well, that was something. And at that point, we were almost to the halfway point. So we're kind of like, okay, now we're just like.
I think mentally, having that 10K run off and knowing that the longest run we had coming up was maybe like 3 miles. That was a nice mental thing.
Yeah.
But we also couldn't, take our foot off the gas because we still had some monster swims coming up, including
so in this race,
like
the
4K of swimming.
The big runs were sort of front loaded, and the big swims were at the back. Again, which this isn't typical for the European races, we were told, where the swims would be so many of these super long swims. But given the course, there's only a certain amount of bays, so you can't just like climb out on the rocks. You have to go to the next cove or beach.
Yeah.
So the next swim from Emerald Bay to Howland's Landing was about 1,400 yards or 1,300 meters. That swim was kind of chill along the water, along the shore, and that one wasn't too bad. But I did feel like the water temperature was starting to get a little bit colder at that point.
Yeah. Oh, that one was around the point.
You kind of go straight, and then you hit this rock, and then you bang a right, and then just jump out of the beach.
So that was kind of difficult. A lot of these swims were around things, you wouldn't get in the water. Like I remember Casco Bay, this was nice, that before you were kind of on the beach getting the water, and they're like, it's right over there, and you could see the flag. So you kind of had something to side off of. These ones were like, we'll go around this, and it'll be on the other side. Right. So you kind of had to really trust your line.
And Ötillö did have some buoys kind of in the water, some orange buoys, so you can kind of see them. But even those, like the position on them was a little weird because one of them were going to the buoy, and then it's like, oh wait, the beach is like right over there. So the buoy was just kind of like to give you some sort of
generally
landmark.
Sign on, yeah. Or who knows? I mean, the waters were really rough.
It
could have moved like a couple hundred yards.
Yeah, who knows? So then once we got to Howland's Landing, then it was a 1.3 mile run to Big Geiger Cove. Nothing too eventful with that, just kind of like.
And the trails are nice. They're kind of just big, wide fire road trails like you might find out in Marin.
Yeah, and you're just sort of climbing out of the beach onto a trail and then just continuing to head south at that point back towards Two Harbors.
So do you think a lot of these teams that are picking up time, so for example, we did that 1.3 mile run in 16 minutes. That puts us at an average pace of 12 minutes. So
yeah, that was super great.
Yeah,
but I think we knew that the next swim, because we had our legs on the paddles, written on the paddles. We knew that the next swim was really the big one. So once we got to Big Geiger Cove, which was leg 10 at this point, we had to go to Lion's Head Cove, and that was the longest swim of the day. That was 1,600 meters or 1,700 yards or 1,750, which is over a mile.
Yep.
And the water was definitely getting cold. That swim, I didn't think it was super technical. It was a little creepy at one point when we were going
algae,
over, or it was kelp
forests rather.
Yeah, there was a kelp forest that was just kind of waving, and I was just waiting for some like mermaid hand to come and grab you or something.
And it was super clear, and it was really cool to see all these fish.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. I mean, actually, that probably was our best swim. We did that in sub 140 pace.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with that.
It was pretty straight. I mean, yeah, I think we both knew that was a big swim, so we were just kind of like going for it, and we're both working pretty hard on that one.
Yeah.
Once we got out of that one, then we had a little bit of a longer run that I felt like I needed to run. So once we got to Lion's Head Cove, we had a run to what's called 4th of July Cove, and that was 2.2 miles or 3.6K. And my hands were definitely cold coming out of that swim.
Yeah, I saw you kind of doing that, and we were
kind of doing like the hypothermia check where you can do like the Spock.
If you can do the Vulcan thing or not. And that was was that the run that was on the fire road that we... And that's when we kind of
ran through a random camp.
Yeah, like a summer camp type of thing. And yeah, it was good, and that was good. I actually felt that we were coming along.
Yeah,
like
and actually
I felt the legs, and we passed
run,
a couple people.
Yeah, on that run we passed like teams. 3 or 4 teams. So the legs were feeling good. I think that was before the soreness from the downhill really kicked in. My left quad was a little tweaked, I think, from the downhill. It was just going down a little bit too hot, but it was manageable. And then we got to 4th of July Cove, which was a swim back to basically the start, which was Isthmus Harbor Beach, which was about 800 meters or 900 yards.
That one was we struggled with the sighting on that one. It just
like we didn't know where to go, so you swim out, and then luckily there was a boat, and we were like just kind of with a paddle pointing that way, and the guy was like, yeah, go to the beach, because you couldn't really tell.
Yeah, and there was 2 swim entrances. There was the one that was the entrance to swim finishes, which were orange flags. So there was one that we were going to from this swim that we went out to go do another loop of the 2 harbors, or there was the finish, which was the last swim finish, which only had a quarter-mile run or whatever. So
yeah, so once we figured that out, we got on the beach, and then that was a little tough because you essentially run past the finish line. You could
just
smell the burgers
and hear people celebrating.
Yeah, like people already done. We're like, fuck. And then we had a 3-mile run, which is basically the last real run of the day, or basically 5K.
Yeah.
To go back to Fisherman's Cove, where the first swim ended, to then jump back in the water and swim back all the way back to Isthmus Harbor, which was about 1,500 yards or 1,400 meters.
Now that run, we kind of in our head we're like, okay, this is in the bag. We got this run. When we can do the swim, we could backstroke it and it will be fine.
It felt like a victory lap a little bit on the run.
It was nice. It felt good.
But I will say on that run, we finally saw our first wild animal on land.
We did not see any bison.
No, we saw one fucking squirrel. Yeah. And that's it.
That is true. And we see tons of squirrels here all the time.
Yeah,
so.
we wanted to see some bison. But
not be threatened by them, but just see them.
Yeah, we don't want to get gored. We just wanted to see him. But we didn't see him. So then that last swim, I was pretty dead.
Yeah, so
in all honesty, I was like, Chipper, let me just go out as far as I can.
And I'm turning.
Yeah.
Well, actually, to take a brief step back on that 800 swim, we were on the run approaching the second to last swim, and Chris said, my shoulders are pretty toast. Let me just take us out. I don't think I can make it to this buoy, and I said, cool, just go, and when you're done, sit up, and I'll come around and I'll Thomas the Tank Engine in home. And you surpassed the buoy, you went longer than what you said, and then we kind of knew that after that run, we kind of discussed, like, okay, you go until you empty the tank. And the thing is, too, it's like, okay, yes, you're doing less work on the feet, but you're still swimming.
Yeah,
you're still moving
swimming.
your shoulders.
It's
not like you're doing nothing back there.
Yeah, I'm still doing work, and definitely felt it. Like even just, I would say the last 300 meters, I was just kind of like my eyes were rolling in the back of my head. Like I stopped sighting. Like I just like, all right,
just falling.
Just head down.
Like, I better hope Chipper knows where he's going.
Just breathing. Just like, all right, we got to get this over with.
Yeah, and I was, and we were just ready to be over at that point. And entering that swim, it definitely felt colder.
Yes,
definitely was colder.
Yes, it was getting colder. The current had shifted because I think tide was coming out. And once we got to the beach, we had 0.2 miles, 300 meters on the sand to get to the finish, and we did it. And then it was done. Yeah, it was. I would say it's a huge challenge. I think I do think that there's obviously room for improvement, just in training and all that stuff. But overall impressions of the race. I mean, man, what a challenge!
An amazing sense of adventure. Nothing that if you're not trained up, you're not making it through. I mean, this is.
Oh, yeah.
You can't fake your way through this.
No. Not at all. Yeah, this is something like if you're not comfortable in open water, if you don't have a good partner, I mean, there's a lot of things like, this race I think we took a little bit more serious. I mean, we definitely did. I definitely felt a little bit of the pressure to, just do the best we can.
Yeah. I mean, we always want to do, our sort of ethos now is, we know we're not going to be podium or even in the mid or top of the pack. But when people would ask me, hey, how did you think you did? For our training and our effort and our life stage that we are right now, we did the best that we could do. We executed our plan. We had fun, yada, yada, yada.
And I think if anything for me, not to turn this into a love fest, it just solidified once again why I think having a good partner is so important. Like, there was much less banter on this one, partly because I had earplugs in, so I couldn't hear you unless you were like looking at me.
What?
When
I
you were
can't
talking.
hear you.
It's like, what?
Never mind. I'm like,
I'm
gonna yank these things out of
I definitely need to work on that because I can't swim without earplugs, which is problematic. But yeah, there was much less chit chat, but I still felt like regardless, we had each other's back. And yeah, I mean, couldn't think of another person to do battle with.
Totally, I agree. And, we told each other this many times during the race, like, hey, I'm really happy that I'm doing this with you and that you're my guy. And yeah, like we talked about this during the race too. I thought it's super interesting is, when these really long endurance events, and we don't do a ton of ultra marathons, but we do dabble, but there's high mental parts and there's low mental parts where you're like, oh my God, I should just drop out. Let me go sit down at the next aid station. Oh, this is dumb. I just want to be home eating a beer or drinking a beer and eating pizza. And it's like, well, hold on. It's not about you anymore. And I know if I'm going to be kind of like really soft and go, oh, I need to take a walk break here or something. Hey, no, I have to suck it up for my partner. And this sort of like unspoken kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I assume it's not just between us.
No. I think another way to describe that. Yeah. And I definitely remember talking about this was like, because you're doing it with someone else, you don't want to let them down and you want to do well for them. And they want to do well for you. It's almost as if I've done, we paced each other at races. And when you're pacing someone like an ultra marathon or something, you can't be the weakest link. You're there to support the other person accomplishing their goals. And I think in Swimrun, it's like this symbiotic relationship. Like, yes, we have the same goal, but I don't want to let you down. You don't want to let me down. And that sort of raises our ability to deal with pain, deal with adversity, and sort of get to the finish line, which I think, if we need to give you yet another reason why Swimrun is this amazing sport, it's that.
Yeah, and I don't, there was no time that I could tell that you were down, and I didn't necessarily feel that I had a lull, and usually we're really good about sensing those because we train so much, like.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that we were ever, like, off. I don't ever feel like we
agree.
were necessarily on, particularly, though. We were kind of on the whole day. I never felt really, really good. Like, hey, let's go catch those people. Like I wasn't full of that much piss and vinegar.
I mean, surprisingly, I felt best when we were smoking that downhill on the 10K and we were just passing teams. Like that was like, that's where I was like, oh yeah, like we actually have something to contribute to this, which is our ability to
we're not getting our ass kicked or anything.
destroy downhills. And I would say my proudest moment was that Parsons Bay swim where, that was like a complicated, that was hard.
Yeah.
And we nailed it. We didn't
fun.
Go, as you said, ass over tea kettle or whatever the expression is.
I particularly liked maybe the second to last run that we had that was maybe 2 miles to the Big Geiger Cove, maybe, where we did pass a couple teams. But, for training in Marin, so much of the hills had such a familiarity to us. It's like, oh, my God, in my head, like I was already visualizing like, oh, this is kind of like coming up Miwok or, oh, when we're coming down this certain thing that Chris and I have done this time 4-6 times, And we felt really good, and I kind of felt that our endurance legs, like from a run standpoint, was taking over because we did start to kind of clip a couple teams off that probably proceeded to pass us again in the water. But on the run, it was kind of a fun experience to have a little bit of that. Like, we're competitive people. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah, we want to do well.
It felt good to pass a couple teams. But
yeah, and it was a little bit of a boost, and I think that for everyone that was out there competing, just hats off. If you DNF'd, that sucks. A friend of ours from Novato, her partner got pretty hypothermic and had to be pulled. And hey, it's a team sport, so your partner gets pulled. That's the way the day goes.
But you probably still had some serious adventure going on too, which was nice.
Yeah. So to everyone that was out there, kudos. Definitely felt like when we crossed the finish line, all the congratulations we have. Michael, the co-race director, was there. First thing I did was complain about lack of bison, and he looked confused, and I was like, that was a joke.
Yeah, that was funny because we came across and Chris and I were debating, well, should we do something silly like ride on my back or do something like that? And then I was running and I'm like, I honestly don't know if I have the energy to try to pick him up or, I don't want the Ötillö folks to think that we're not serious about the sport too. Like that came across my mind. Like, they probably already think we're jokesters with all the memes and stuff. And it's like, oh, these guys don't take the sport that we love so much seriously, which I hope that they honestly don't feel that way. But, Yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, this was a super serious race, and yeah.
But I will say, if you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh, swim run sounds fun," but these guys scared the shit out of me, there's 2 other events that were a blast.
Yeah.
The experience race and the sprint race, and I think the total time for the I can look it up.
Yeah.
Why don't you give a little bit of?
Yeah, so we actually knew a bunch of people that were doing the races on Saturday. So Saturday were the short races. One that was an experience, which you could do solo, and then a sprint distance, which was a little bit longer. Neither of those courses had the really big climbs or even the super long swims.
So just to give you a little bit of a context here, the experience was the shortest one that they offer. The winner did it in 1 hour and 4 minutes.
That sounds nice.
And the slowest person did it in 2 hours. So that's not, I would maybe say that's like a sprint triathlon kind of, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably maybe running 5K maybe and not too much swimming. So you could get the fun of swim run and not have to be out there all day and do all this crazy stuff.
And a shout out to one of the title sponsors of Ötillö, which is Arc Swim Run.
Mm-hmm.
They have a rental program, so a bunch of
Genius.
people, I think they said they rented like 35 suits or something like that for the sprint and the experience, which is great. I mean, you could come out, do this race, not have to invest a ton of money and all the gear, and just actually come and get the whole flavor. I mean, you got the full experience on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. And it's the whole weekend experience is fun. I mean, I'm so happy that we came on Friday.
Yeah.
And we came to Catalina Island, which is just incredibly beautiful and super welcoming. And the whole weekend, and I'm already, like, the second I got home, I told my wife, and Chris and I were talking about this on the way home, I'm like, oh, we got to come back next year, and we're bringing everybody, like, the family, the mother-in-law and all this stuff, because it's just this fun place that we could stay for a week.
We didn't talk about mother-in-laws.
Oh, I did. Yeah. But, yeah, and then so the sprint, the second level up from the experience, the winner did it in 1 hour 35. So it's just a little bit longer, but there were some teams that looked like they took closer to 3 hours for that one.
Yeah, and there are some folks, I know that a friend of ours that we interviewed, Mia, she was recovering from knee surgery, and she did a swim walk.
Yeah.
So she would do the swims and then just walk the run sections, and was out there doing it and had a great time. And I think the thing that can't be overstated is the community of it. Mm-hmm. And how everyone at the finish line, I mean, we were joking that afterwards we were pretty hungry and we tried to go get food.
We were getting a little bonky.
And it took us forever because everyone
30 minutes.
Everyone kept stopping us, asking us how the race went, what's going on. So we were chatting with people, and it was just like we just kept having to extricate ourselves so we could just get some food.
I know, we felt kind of rude, so if we may have blown you off, I'm personally sorry, and I know Chris is. We pretty much finished, and people were walking around. There were some people that were hypothermic.
Yeah.
Jackhammering, shivering so hard. We ran pretty much to the showers, took a hot shower, changed. We came back. I'm like, oh, that's so hungry. Oh, we saw the Swimrun monks. Okay, let's chat with them. Chat with them for 5 minutes.
Yeah, Team Baywatch comes over.
Yeah.
We're like, how's it going?
Then
people
we
met on
need
the
a
ferry.
burger. We need a burger. And then so we turn around, take 5 steps. Oh, Low Tide Boys, how'd your race go?
Man?
Like,
What's going on?
Okay. So we chat with this person. And then we're like, okay, we started to blow you off. We got to go. And then we sat and we finally got our burger. We had 2 burgers and chips and everything. We sat down to eat, and someone's like, hey, how did your thing? I'm like, oh, man. And
yeah, it was. I mean, but at the same point, it was really cool. I mean, I definitely remember noticing when we crossed the finish line, as we're crossing the finish line, like the Odyssey Swimrun crew and Kraken Collective took over one of the cabanas. And just huge cheer, like Low Tide Boys. And when they announced us at the finish line, I mean, I remember hearing a cheer from from where everyone was eating, hanging out, just being like, yeah, which is great.
That's
I mean, it's fantastic.
Crazy.
I would say we're coming back next year, barring injury or something like that. And I'm looking forward.
Even if we are injured, I'm just coming back to hang.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, record some more
for sure.
podcast episodes. But it was great. So if you have any questions about the race report or want more details, send us an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com or reach out to us on Instagram at @lowtideboys.
And we will be sure to check the show notes because we're going to cultivate we talked to Marcus Benton's video, any other post-race report things that we can collect.
Yeah, we'll link to the official
include
photos if you want to get what's going on.
Yeah, the photos are great. Ötillö gives you those photos for free. Very high quality, very, very good photos.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So that's it for the race report. Now, if you want even more Ötillö Catalina stuff, stay tuned to listen to episode B, which will be Helen and Isabella and their race report, second female team overall.
Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boys, a swim run podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes, or
until
run
you
to
cross the finish line.
Or run to the car.
Or run to your car.
Somewhere. Just keep running.
Peace.